Hello everyone and welcome to another session of Black Hat Asia 2020. My name is Erez Yalon, I'm the Director of Security Research at Checkmarks, and today I'm here to tell you the story about a vulnerability, this vulnerability. It was in the end of 2019 and Google confirmed our findings of Android cameras has a security threat in them, and theoretically, potentially hundreds of millions of users could have been affected. But this is not another story of another vulnerability. I would like to give you the exciting angle from the hacker's perspective. How we start with an idea and finish it with a complete, full blown exploit that actually caught the attention of Google with its criticality. So I will start with some Android terminology just to make sure we are aligned and everyone knows how to use the terms. And then we will go step by step as a hacker would go. First, we will just start hacking. Then when we do find a hole into the system, we'll try to be persistent and stay there. Step 3 will be stealth. And then we'll move into the fun part of always wanting more, because this is what hackers want. The important part of disclosure, and then we'll try to summarize and learn something from this story. So let's begin. Let's start with using the vulnerability as a feature. Hey Google, take a selfie.
Sure, get ready.
As you can see, the camera turned on, but it did not take a picture. In the past, before the fixes, it actually started a countdown from 3 to 1 and the picture would have taken. So what happened here? I asked from the Google personal assistant, Google PA, to take a selfie. This was my command. The Google application sent an intent that we will talk about in a second, and this intent was caught by the application of the camera, and then the action happened. Let's see how it goes. So intents are a call for action. You can have an implicit intent or an explicit intent. The explicit intent is easy because it goes for a specific action by a specific application. You need to know which application you're calling and which action specifically you are calling in that application. The more, well, not complicated, but more complex intent is the implicit one. The implicit one would mean that you just send out to the air an intent and hope that some application will catch it and act upon it. And we see these examples, for example, when we use map locations, then our favorite map application would take this intent and use it. Or a web page, we just click a web page, an intent is sent, and then our favorite browser will use that. The same with the selfie. We sent an intent for a selfie, rather the Google PA sent an intent for a selfie, and then the camera application caught the intent and opened the camera. So this is as far as intents go. Obviously, you see here that this is a communication method between application. So some permissions must be in place for that to happen. And we see that the purpose of permissions is to protect the privacy of an Android user. And Android apps must request permission to access certain system features, such as camera and internet. And this comes from the permissions overview of Android. And there are several steps that the developer needs to go through. They are pretty simple, just to make sure that the permissions are implemented correctly. So a developer must start with declaring the need for permission, and then to check for a permission if it was given or not. If it was given, excellent, the action can just execute. If not, then there must be asking an activity that asks for this permission. And you can see on the right, we all know this pop-up this pop-up screen that asks us to allow some sort of application a permission. For example, access to camera. So if we summarize the process that we saw here, a user, me, gives a command, a verbal command, to the Google PA. The Google PA sent the intent, hoping someone will catch it. The application who caught the intent was the camera application that was supposed to check for permission. We will talk about that in a second. And to activate the action in the camera application, in this specific case, just shoot a selfie. So let's talk about the permission of the camera app. Let's get hacking. The first step of finding a hole in the system is usually just going through a lot of code. And here, finding a hole started by analyzing the exported activities. The exported activities are those who can be called and matched to an intent. So if we look at the attributes of an activity, there are many attributes for many activities, but we can see here that the exported true or false is the one that will say if a specific activity will be exported or not. So it makes sense for us to start and looking for these that are exported. Google's camera application provided many of those, many exported activities, and that makes sense because the camera interacts in many ways and with many apps. So that was not a big surprise. We started to go a bit deeper, and all these different activities mapped into different classes. The classes are the actual code here. And when we dug inside this code, we managed to find that there are different actions inside these classes, but not all of them are protected. We were looking for the classes and the actions that did not have any permission checks, and we actually found some. So the camera does not care who calls it into action. Not accurate. It does care, and the camera actually checks for permissions for many activities, but not for all. And here we need to become creative. So the biggest example we saw of not looking for permission was the invocation of video camera. This action just started the Google camera and it immediately started to record. No question asked, no permissions needed. That was quite a surprise, a good surprise, because we were looking for that kind of things. Also, we saw that we needed no permission to change between cameras. So we could change it to select the front camera or back camera, no problems. We wanted to take a picture, but that was a bit more tricky because the plain way of just taking shooting a picture was protected by permission checks. But we managed to find a variant of the timer that allowed us to have a timer before taking a photo. The minimum time was 3 seconds. It was hard-coded actually, the minimum, so we could not change that. But we could take a picture with a timer. So this was all very interesting for us. We found a way to switch between cameras and to choose what to take picture of, what to take a video of. That was a very fruitful step one. And by the end of that step, we actually started to design a rogue application. Ours were not malicious and we obviously did not share it on the Play Store. But this is something that a lot of hackers do, create rogue malicious applications. We can hide it inside a game, inside a, calendar application, or any other application that looks useful or interesting, and just hide these features, these exploits inside it. So we now have a rogue application. We called it Spikecell. The reason is because we use the Pixel phone by Google for all the tryouts. And we see that it does not require any special access. We can see it here on the screen. But although it did not require any specific permissions and did not ask for any access, it still could take pictures and videos at will. And let's see an example here. again, it could be any game or anything that we want. We here turn off the device, and as you remember, it will not take a picture, it will take a delayed 3-second picture. Let's wait for a second. And here goes. Here is the timer, 3, 2, 1, and we have a picture. No permissions asked. Let's pause for a second and discuss what do hackers really want. So hackers want to find an entrance to what they're doing, to the system. They want to establish persistence. And when we are in, we want to be secretive and stealthy. We don't want anyone to notice that we are there, and also not that we've been there. And we always want more. So at the moment, we have an entrance to the system because we managed to find some activities in the camera that are not permission protected. Let's go on with the second step of establishing persistence. So this part is very, very important always. When we manage to exploit something, we want to be able to come back to that system after exploited. So to make sure that we have persistence, we need all the parts in the system to be persistent. So we need both the camera application and the rogue application that we created to be persistent. And for the camera, it's not a problem. It's already persistent by design, just waiting for the right intent to happen. Our rogue app was not. And to make it one, it didn't really require any hacking, just programming. Android programming allows you to create a background process that will do exactly that. Keep your application persistent at all times. So now, after this step, we have an application, again, a rogue application, that is hidden in some game or anything else, that even when the app closes, as we can see here, we can take a video. Even when the app closes, the screen is off, and we can see that the phone is even locked. Still, there is a video action that is starting without any permission asked from the user, and it was started not by the user itself, himself or herself. So we have an entrance, we have persistence. Now let's go to the fun part of being stealthy. Stealth is, in other words, fooling the senses. So we have 5 senses. Luckily, usually when we're hacking, we're not using our sense of smell and sense of taste. In this specific instance, there were no vibrations or moving parts, so we can scratch that off as well. But we still have eyesight and hearing. So, as you noticed, when the application, the camera application starts, the screen pops on. This is a problem. It can easily be seen. Also, after we take a picture or we take a video, these media pieces or these pictures or videos are saved in the storage. If a user, or the victim in this case, sees them, then they absolutely understand that something is going on, and this is not stealthy. And the most annoying of all is the shutter sound. I think the shutter sound is annoying even when you just take a picture. Obviously, it's even more annoying when you're trying to hack something. So let's start with that. That was quite funny. The phone cannot be muted without the right permissions, and it makes sense. You don't want any application to shut up your phone. This is something that the user needs to choose to do. And there are no, and we decided we want to do it without permissions. So that was not possible, muting it. But what was possible? To make it, to adjust it to a lower volume level. So if we adjusted it to become lower and lower, eventually the volume reaches silence. So we created this super hacking loop of just turning down the volume 30 times, and by that reaching complete silence. Um, that was quite funny, and we laughed a lot. And this really does not seem to be the expected behavior, because if Google decided that you cannot mute the phone without permissions, then obviously this is not right as well. We told Google about that, and they actually agreed with us, and we got a separate CVE just for that funny part. But that was an important part of our bigger exploit, the bigger picture, because of the ability of us to silence the shuttle. What about the screen? So let's talk about the proximity sensor. Proximity sensor, as its name suggests, senses when there is something in proximity to the screen itself. It's a small slit or a round hole at the top of the screen in most phones, and it senses when something blocks the screen. For example, if it goes into a wallet or just laid upside down or in a pocket. In all these cases, the screen is off. So how about we ask nicely from the Rogue app to wait until the screen is covered and only then take a picture or a video of its surrounding. So at the moment, we have this application that will not pop on the screen when the user is looking. The storage permission we had to use for the media files. This was kind of cheating, but we felt good with this cheating of actually asking for this permission, this only permission. We saw there some researchers, and apparently most of the applications on the Google Android Play Store are using this permission. And on our phones as well, and everyone that we asked, everyone is almost always giving this storage permission. So we decided to use that as the only permission that our application asks for. And we see that in 2015, 54 of the application asked for that permission. These days, it's much more, as we noticed. So again, let's go back to our list. We want to find an entrance, we did that. We want to establish persistence, we did that as well. We want to be secretive and stealthy, but we always want more. Really, we always want more, and if we try enough, we also get it. So I can see now my victims, I can hear them through video, but can I know where they are? Can I find them? Well, the answer is yes. Most pictures that are taken today, and videos as well, have a location geotag embedded in the metadata. So this is turned on by default on most phones, and I think that most people do not turn it off. I personally use it. I find it very, very comfortable and leave it on. But in this case, it gave us a lot of information, since we managed to get the pictures and the videos from the storage of the victim. Now we could also use the metadata inside to find the location. And if we take a picture every now and then we have actual real-time geolocation. So this is how it looked like on our system. We actually evolved the targeted phone to a tracking device. We had a list of videos and pictures that we took. Then we could translate them into GPS coordinates, and they were very specific. And then to actually plot them on a map and see our victim and its movements. And this is our system. On the right, you can see the Rogue application. By that time, it had the front of a weather application. It was not very accurate as a weather application, but it was a very malicious Rogue application in the back. And all we needed when it was run one time and then stayed persistent in the background was to open our system. You can see it on the left. We could see a list of all the phones that were connected, all the victims. We could choose one and see a big list of files on their storage. We could see the exact location, And even here you can see the surprised face of the victim. Although he's not really surprised, this is our senior researcher, Pedro Umbelino. So we got more, but wait, there is even more than that. When we talked about the proximity sensor scenario, I left one scenario outside, and this scenario is this one. Another proximity sensor activation is when we use the phone close to our face, for example, when we have a conversation. So, how about using it to record a video when you talk? And now suddenly your private calls are not so private anymore. And this is the next and final evolution of our rogue application. And now the phone becomes not only a tracking device, but also an eavesdropping device that can hear every single word in a conversation of both sides. And here is an example. This is the victim side.
Hello? Hello? Who's calling?
And the attacker side.
Hello? Who's calling? Fish.
So, what do hackers really want? We want to find an interest, we want to establish persistence, we want to be secretive and stealthy, and we want more. And in this case, we got a lot more and much more than we expected. And that was pretty awesome. So, step 5, the disclosure process. The disclosure timeline all happened in late 2019. It started in July when we submitted a full report with POC, with one of the first malicious apps that we created, and a video to the Android security team at Google. Google got it and set the severity of the finding as moderate. We were not very happy with that, and we felt that moderate is not high enough. And we really wanted to make sure that Google understands that it's higher than that. And the reason is not only that the bounty for high severity is higher than moderate, but also because when something is marked moderate, Google acknowledge that they have a problem, and when they have time, they will fix it. When it's high, they do everything they can to fix it as quickly as possible, and we wanted that. So what we did is we created the demo that you all just saw, and send it further with further feedback to Google, explaining exactly why we believe that this is much more serious than a moderate issue. Google acted very quickly and raised the severity of the finding to high, and from that point on, we had a dedicated team working with us and updating us with every change that they made. Then in August, Google issued the CVE ID, and during that time, we started thinking that since a lot of other vendors were using very similar camera applications and obviously using the same Google personal assistant with these same features, they might also have the same issue. And we started experimenting. We talked to Google about that, and they actually confirmed that other Android smartphone vendors from the Android ecosystem may also be vulnerable to that. So we tried to talk to several vendors, but then Google did it for us and contacted them regarding these vulnerabilities, including the explanations and the mitigations. Samsung is the only vendor that actually confirmed that they are all that they are affected as well. Other vendors did not. It does not mean that they were not affected. It just means that they did not confirm that they were affected. And to be honest, we did not test anything else, so we chose to believe them. And eventually, both Google and Samsung approved the publication last November, and we went on to publishing everything. The media traction was very high. Obviously, we had almost 2 million views only on Forbes. It really went viral. I guess people don't really like the idea of knowing that their privacy is at stake, and that they can be tracked by a very basic application on their phone. Google sent us a response, so I will read it now. We appreciate Checkmarx bringing this to our attention and working with Google and Android partners to coordinate disclosure. The issue was addressed on impacted Google devices via a Play Store update to the Google camera application in July 2019. A patch has also been made available to all partners. Just as a personal side note, I want to say that working with the Google security team was amazing. I don't think I ever had the pleasure of working with such professionals. The responsiveness and the way that they took responsibility over the issue so quickly was amazing. The first thing they do was to release a very quick and dirty patch. It actually broke the feature of the Google personal assistant, but they understood and they knew that it's more important to fix this issue than to use that feature. Along the way, they created a much more elegant fix that allowed the personal assistant to work as we saw in the beginning without taking a picture, but just opening the camera and waiting for the user to use it. It was really a nice experience to work with that team. And as a researcher, it's really important for us as well. So, to wrap it up, what we learned. We have something for everyone. So, if you're a developer, keep an eye on your exported activities. Your exported activities are probably the first opening that a hacker will look for. And the Android permission system is there for you. Use it and don't skip any part of it. It's very important. If you're a researcher or a pen tester or a hacker, remember that finding a hole in security is only the first step. And if you can put your foot in, try and put more another foot and then the entire body, because when you go deep, you can find very interesting things. And don't forget to use other vulnerabilities along the way. They are your friends, chain them together and get a bigger and nicer exploit. And if you're doing it for the money, we don't judge. If you're a bounty hunter, sometimes it is worth haggling with the security team about the kind of severity that they assign to a specific vulnerability. Thank you very much.